I would give the Clippers a slight edge as the favorites in the Western Conference.
The favorites in the West. You're putting them ahead of the Golden State Warriors. Key, are you buying this?
Yeah, I am buying it.
Really?
Oh no, it is starting already. The Clippers sign one past his prime point guard, and the media is just deciding the championship. But you know what? They might actually not be crazy. This is a look at the latest Vegas odds to win the 2023 title. After the Clips got Wall, they shot up to plus 600, the same odds as the Warriors, Celtics, and Bucks. This team is gonna be scary good next year, but how concerned should the Warriors actually be? Now, I actually picked the Clippers to win 2 out of the 3 years that AM Hoops has been on YouTube, and I might do it again. I'll tell you later in this video, but we have to acknowledge it's not just about John Wall. This is really about getting Kawhi Leonard back. I believe if he does not tear his ACL in 2021, they would beat the Suns and then the Bucks. This team should already be champions. Now they get Wall to be their point guard. And first of all, yes, he should start. I know that they won't announce that yet. They're gonna say, oh no, John Wall and Reggie Jackson, we don't have a starter going into camp. They're both gonna battle for the starting job. No, they're not. John Wall doesn't choose the Clippers to play off the bench. Oh, Reggie Jackson scored 17 points with 5 assists last year. Yeah, on a team that didn't make the playoffs and didn't have their top 2 scorers most of the year. John Wall is a 5-time All-Star. Reggie Jackson is nicknamed the Goggle Goat. Literally a meme. Should not be your starting point guard. But did you see the trick that John Wall pulled with his money? Dude did a buyout with the Rockets, giving back $6.5 million of his 47. Then he signed with the Clippers for $6.5 million. So he's giving up no money to play for a contender. Genius move! The opposite of the Lakers. Ramona Shelburne reported the Lakers turned down another trade for John Wall. Not the original one, giving up Westbrook and a first-round pick. Houston lowered the price to a pick swap, and they turned that down. They had a chance to end the Westbrook nightmare for just a pick swap? And if you don't know, a pick swap is just the right to swap picks in a given draft. So if the Lakers have a better pick in the 2026 draft, then they would just swap first round picks with the Houston Rockets. So the Lakers would still have a pick, or it might not even make sense for the Rockets to swap and the Lakers give up nothing. Imagine how frustrated LeBron James must be right now. He has to go into next season just pretending everything's okay, everything's fine. Like that dog meme. The Clippers haven't had a star point guard like this since they traded Chris Paul 5 years ago. John Wall will play with Kawhi, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Ivica Zubac. Dude's been waiting to play for PG ever since they did the Nene after John Wall in the dunk contest. Wall is gonna bring playmaking, scoring, and the ability to push the pace. And I'm not saying that he's, as electric of a player as he was in his prime, but I do think Wall can evolve. Playing with 2 dynamic offensive threats like Kawhi and PG is gonna give John Wall space to change his game. A perfect example of this is Derrick Rose. D Rose, of course, on the Knicks, does not throw his body around like he used to. It's more of like a shifty perimeter game. I think he's more likely to drive, but then stop and pop as he is to just lay it in like he used to. The one thing LA has been missing is a guy to run the offense who's also a threat to score himself and play at pace. And y'all forget how good Kawhi is. I think Paul George is still underrated. People think of him still as the guy in the bubble who hit the shot off the side of the backboard. But 1 year ago this week, he dropped 41 points, 13 boards, and 6 assists in Game 5 of the West Finals. This team is a sleeping giant that could wake up and dominate the West. But how concerned should the reigning champs actually be? Well, a lot depends on what happens in free agency, obviously. Right now, I think the biggest threats to the Warriors in the West are the Clippers and the Suns. Now, Phoenix could lose DeAndre Ayton, which would set them back a lot. But beyond that, I just see a bunch of flawed teams that can't really contend. Like Memphis has Ja Morant and a bunch of good young players, but they're too young. The Mavericks have Luka, but he's their only star. I've got hope for the Nuggets, but Michael Porter Jr.'s health is a giant question mark. The Timberwolves and Pels are both cute, but I don't think they're ready. The Clippers have both skill and mature veterans to beat Golden State. But will they? No. I completely disagree with those guys at ESPN. The Clippers are a super team, which used to like guarantee a finals appearance, but lately, it's been a disaster. Super teams have 3 main speed bumps: ego, chemistry, and injuries. Superstars, of course, have egos that they bring to a locker room to mess things up. Just look at the Brooklyn Nets, obviously a 24/7 soap opera. Chemistry is a problem because all of these superstars on super teams like to have the ball in their hands. Look at the Lakers with LeBron and Russ and AD. And super teams deal with injuries because superstars are usually old. The Nets and Lakers know about that. The Clippers have to overcome all 3 of those issues, plus the Warriors, to win the West. And no offense to Kawhi, he's my favorite player, but if dude cracks a nail, he'll be out for like 2 weeks. He just doesn't care about the regular season. And people are just forgetting that Paul George tore a ligament in his elbow and chose to not have surgery on it. He did not fix it, and it is still torn. John Wall has barely played in years, and I know that he'll be a steal for his contract, but there's a reason that nobody traded for him. The last true super team that we saw overcome all this and win a title was the Cavaliers in 2016. Before that, it was LeBron's Miami Heat in 2013, and that's after they all got together and just completely bombed in 2011. I don't count the KD Warriors as a super team because 3 of their 4 players were homegrown. And maybe you could count the Bubble Lakers, but really they were more of a big 2. The Clippers are a legit super team and are especially susceptible to my big 3 speed bumps. I predict one more roster change for the Clippers. John Wall is taking that mid-level exception, so Isaiah Hartenstein is gonna have to leave, which is a huge bummer because he was one of the best backup centers in the entire league last year and a real surprise. His defensive impact was amazing, and some lucky team is gonna get him to steal him as a starter, which he deserves. Like maybe the Hornets. Having a super rich owner like Steve Ballmer comes in handy, by the way. The Clippers can just spend as much money as possible as the salary cap allows because Ballmer will always pay the luxury tax. And I know Clipper fans will come at me with like their depth, and they do have depth. They've got Norman Powell, they have Robert Covington, Luke Kennard, right? But the Warriors have their big 3 plus Andrew Wiggins, plus all these young guys with experience coming back, and James Wiseman, that includes him. It's kind of a wash coaching-wise, Steve Kerr against Ty Lue. And the Warriors, they all have that confidence that comes with having just won a championship, where the only important guy on the Clippers who's done that is Kawhi Leonard. But before free agency is always the NBA draft. We had some big surprises in the draft this year, so I had to hand out some grades. Check it out.